Hello everyone and welcome to Dembles Galore. My name is Carol Garrison and I live in White Bear Lake, Minnesota. I am so excited this morning to be sharing with you the Sand and Sea Suite. When I saw this suite, it just jumped out at me and I immediately sent a message to Rachel saying, please, please, please let me do this at the Dembles Galore. I don't know if it's that I haven't been able to travel or it's the cold winter here, but just the whole beach scene and the seashells and the water just really spoke to my heart and kind of brought me to a happy place here. So the Sand and Sea Suite is found on pages 40, 41, and 42 in the annual catalog, and it consists of 7 different products. The first item is the Friends Are Like Seashells stamp set. This is a 23 image stamp set. It contains 8 greetings and multiple seashell type images. It is a photopolymer set, which makes it very easy to place your images where you want them and see how you're stamping. One word of warning is that because this is such a large stamp set, the images on the outside here are smaller than what you're actually going to be stamping. And I just want to put a stamp on top of it so you can kind of see the size difference on that. So just keep that in mind, not a big deal, but because of the volume of stamps that are there, it does make a difference when you're looking at the case here. The next item in this suite is the die set. It is the Seaside Seashell die, and it contains a total of 6 dies. However, I think they have that labeled wrong and it should say 12 dies. This image is one great big image. And then you've got a sand dollar, a couple seaweed, a little shell, and a starfish. But with this die, you can also cut out the nautilus and use that as a separate die cut piece. This seashell, this shell, this shell, and you can also cut the seaweed to get some of those images. And so that's why I say you can actually get 12 images out of this die. And they do coordinate nicely with the stamps in the stamp set. The next piece of this suite is the Stampin' Cut embossing folder, the Seashells 3D embossing folder, and it is a very detailed embossing folder. And what I find really cool about this suite of products is it's the first one, to the best of my knowledge, that Stampin' Up! Has created that has a die that you can cut your image out on. You can then turn around and stamp on that image and then line it up into an embossing folder and get a really, really cool look using these 2 products that coordinate together so nicely to add a lot of pop to projects. One of the next items in this set are these gorgeous opal rounds. I don't know, I'm going to turn them a little bit in the hopes that you can see them. They've got little flecks of stuff and really look like opals. They come in 2 different sizes and you get 100 of them per card. So again, the opal rounds. I've already gone through most of one sheet and I'm working on my second and have more ordered. The next item are these 3 sheets of stickers. They are So Saffron, Seaside Spray, and Flirty Flamingo. And they are called the Seaside Shells stickers. There's a total of 3 sheets, and on each sheet you get 25 stickers. And they add, again, a little bit of color to your cards without a lot of effort. When you pull them off the sheet, the big solid border stays behind, so you do just get that interior image. And these come on a kind of sparkly paper. Again, I'm hoping by tilting in the camera you're seeing that a little bit. So it matches one of the specialty papers that is included in this suite. Of course, no suite is complete without designer series paper. Look at the colors in this. They just absolutely are full of bright beach type colors. And if you flip them over, you also get good images to use to pop your cards, kind of a sand, a water scene, great all over background images. I love this one with the sand dollars on it. But I'm going to go back here. I think these 2 kind of remind me of a sunset and the water, and really love these ombre effects that they have here. This paper coordinates with So Saffron Sahara Sand, Flirty Flamingo, Melon Mambo, Seaside Spray, and I also can make a good case for Rococo Rose and Soft Suede, as well as papers that will pick up these colors very nicely and complement them. The majority of the background is basic white, but I have found as I was working with it on some of the papers that it goes very nicely too with the very vanilla as your background color. So there you go. Lots of color options with this suite. The final product in the suite is this pearlescent paper. It is double-sided 12 by 12 paper. And by double-sided, I mean that both sides are sparkly. Sometimes it's just one side and then it's a plain white background. But on this one, both sides are sparkly. 2 sheets, 12 by 12, come in the package. You can stamp on that, die cut it, emboss it. It works very well. My only caution is if you're going to be stamping on it that you give the ink time to dry or heat set it before you start working on your card. I do want to show you the stamped images real quick, so that you can see what those images look like. I find that these greetings, the font that's used, make them very easy to emboss with, and they're easy to read, just nice, clean, and simple. And then there are 4 stamps that have 2-step stamping to them. So you've got this shell with this image, and that's what it looks like complete. And then the little shell also does that, this particular shell, and this one. These second step stamping are not meant to line up perfectly with the image, so I kind of like that because I have too much OCD in me and want to have them line up perfectly. So when I get stamps like this, I can overcome that. And then here are the die cut images. I've got some that are just blank so you can see the shape, and then I've stamped them. But I want you to know that these 4 shells, these 5 shells, I actually cut out of the die cut image. So you can see how nicely those look, and it's not hard to do at all. And then here you can see the stickers stuck down on paper without that big border, and also those opal rounds and how pretty those are. To help you see the depth of the 3D embossing folder, I wanted to do this comparison for you. Here it is in just basic white paper. Lots of depth and detail on it. And then I just took a blending brush and put some ink over the same image so that you could see the detail on that as well. So with and without ink, it really can pick up and add some pop to your card. I want to real quick go through now some of the card examples that I made while I was working with this suite. I actually had to stop making cards. They kept flowing through my head. I've got this card with the circle cut out, and I've raised my Nautilus shell up on dimensional so that I can tuck this underneath it to close it. And I use the Friends Are Like Seashells. You collect them on the way. And I'm so happy I found you. And I did emboss this particular image so you can see that it does come out real clear. My next card is a pocket fold card. So it's got a little slide out card that I've used some of the seaweed images on. And the I'm so happy I found you on that so I can write my note. And then I use the Friends Are Like Seashells. You collect them along the way. And I've got designer series paper here. I did use the pearlescent paper and embossed it after stamping it for these 2 shells. Adds a little bit of color. And one of the fun things about this particular suite of papers is it does coordinate with the ribbon in our annual catalog. It is the metallic ribbon in the Seaside Spray color that is currently in the annual catalog. Looks real nice with that. My next card I cased from the annual or from the mini catalog. I tried it on watercolor paper just to see what would happen. And so I think my colors are a little more intense than what is in the mini catalog, but I like the look. It's kind of a blurred image instead of the sharp detail. And then little oysters have little shells have the pearls in them. And I did use white embossing powder on the image again to show you that they do emboss quite well. And here's a card I created using the angular cut paper. And I've got just 3 sand dollars, very simple card, 3 sand dollars popped up on dimensionals to add a little pop to the card. This particular card I cased from Sandy Stellenberg, and I used our blending brushes to color the seaweed, which I cut out of the die, as well as the seashell, which I cut out of that larger die as well. And kind of used this designer paper to be water in the background. This next card I cased from Marilee Major. She actually used the gold flake foil that we have in the mini catalog, which I don't have yet, so I opted to use the gold embossing powder. And then I also used the embossing folder, the Seaside embossing folder that's in the annual catalog, which coordinates very nicely with this set as well. And I did the embossing on the pearlescent paper, so that worked out very well. And just added a little seashell inside to decorate the card. And what I'm going to show you next is my last card here, which is the Wishing You the Very Best. This card is a combination of the die cut stamps and embossing folder so that you can see how that looks. And I want to just run through real quick with you how to make this particular card. You're going to start with an 8.5 by 5.5. Excuse me, I forgot one thing. I do actually have a couple more projects I wanted to share with you. I've got 2 pocket cards that I made. One is I Hope You're Feeling Better, and one is Sending You a Paper Hug. And this one contains hot cocoa pack. This one contains a cup of soup pack. And the phrases come from the Comfort and Hope. But I wanted to show you that it's very easy to create non-seashore type projects using these types of things. And I'm just going to hold this down with a dimensional when I'm ready to send it, but wanted to be able to insert a quick little note in there as well. And my last project before we do our card is this gift box of cards. This was cased from the catalog. I used a blending brush to cover the outside of the pizza box, just wrapped a belly band, cut out a shell. These are a couple of the opal rounds that I used blends on to add a little color. And again, we've got this beautiful linen ribbon that's in our annual catalog. I used the Seaside Spray color, but it's the scalloped linen ribbon that coordinates beautifully with this paper as well. And when you slide off the belly band, inside I've got 4 little 3x3 cards that I created. This one was in the mini catalog, and then I just kind of went off on the others to create this. So you've got a real nice little gift that you can send to a friend utilizing some 3x3 cards. Quick and easy kind of thing to do. And now let's jump to the card that I want to show you how to make. It's this beautiful card. Again, like I said, I used the die cut, the stamps, and the embossing folder to show you how easily that works. And our image is also embossed just to add a little detail to the card. So to start with on this card, you need a 5.5 by 8.5 piece of Sahara sand cardstock, scored at 4 1/4. You need to get a 4 by 5 1/4 piece of the designer series paper, and I used the one that looked like ocean water to me. You need a 4 by 5 1/4 piece of very vanilla cardstock to go inside the card, and I'm not even showing you the right size. There we go. A 4 by 5 1/4 piece of very vanilla for the inside. And then I have already die cut an image out of the pearlescent paper. And what we are going to be doing is stamping our images on this. And because these are photopolymer stamps, you do want to make sure that you're using your foam stamping pad underneath to get a good solid image. And I need a piece of my scrap paper because I am using the cinnamon cider stamp ink color to color my nautilus shell. And what I found worked best is if I did a 2-step stamp on this one, or second generation rather, where I just am going to stamp this image off on my piece of scrap paper and then come in and stamp it on here. I felt that I got a much better color to match the Nautilus shell that I have on a shelf in my house. And we'll pick that up, get rid of that. You don't need to worry about getting these super perfect placement on this particular card, because when we emboss it, it'll shift things around just a little bit, so you don't need to, you know, have it completely 100%. The next color that I'm choosing to use is the Blushing Bride ink on this particular shell, and I like to rotate my image a little bit so that I can get it stamped in the right spot. It's a little tricky sometimes to see where you're stamping through the camera. Then I'm going to grab my Seaside Spray ink. For this little image here, and I always need to twist it just a little bit to make sure I get this one down right. And I'm off a little bit on that, but this is live TV here, so we're gonna go with it. And then finally, it actually isn't going to matter because I've got one all done through the power of filming that is better lined up than this one. We'll use So Saffron here on these two little shells. And then the final step to coloring this particular die cut is going to be using these new blending brushes from Stampin' Up. There's just a fine set of bristles. They're very, very soft. Feels like you could put makeup on or something with them too. And you just rub them in the ink, put it on your image, and go back in and rinse them off with water, and they're as clean as can be again. So I'm going to be using Pear Pizzazz. You just rub it. Let me turn this around a little bit. Rub it on the ink pad and then rub it over. In this case, I'm putting it on my seaweed because I want to add some color to it. And don't worry if you get it a little bit on the edge of the shells, because this is underwater sea life and there tends to be stuff that grows onto this sort of thing. So I just try to get all the little connecting pieces just to add a little bit of color to what I'm working on. And then you're going to want to set this aside so that it can dry and doesn't smear when you run it through the embossing folder. Get those out of the way here. So then the next step in the process here is to take your image and run it through the embossing machine. And like I said, I've already got an image here that I colored earlier so that it would be dry and could be run through the machine. And when you lay it in, it fits in very nicely onto the indented side, or the side that has the Stampin' Up logo on it. This will fit in very nicely. Close it up, crank it through your machine, and when you pull it out, the image looks just like this. And so you can see the texture in the detail in there and a little bit of sparkle. And now we're ready to assemble our card. I'm going to keep that there so you can kind of see the steps as we go through. You take your Sahara Sand cardstock, fold it in half, burnish it with your bone folder. And I always like to do it on both sides if I can. Take your designer series paper and your seal tape and add it to the front of your card, and I just center it on my card here. And press it down. And then I flip over this image and grab my dimensionals, and I use a combination of the larger dimensionals along with a few mini dimensionals depending on where I am attaching them. And I pull in my mini dimensionals because I like to put a few on some of the seaweed where I know it's not going to show through, just to give some support in those areas as well. Okay, we can peel these off. I think I got them all. Do a quick check here. All right, then I'm just going to center that over the designer paper in my card front and press down to make sure I've got all my dimensionals sticking. You do want to be a little bit careful when you're sticking this in an envelope so that you're not catching one of these edges that's sticking up. But other than that, quite simple to put these pieces together here. And then I've got a wishing you the very best that I die cut out of the mini messages. I know that one looks like you need to do the whole thing at one time, but you don't. You can actually cut out individual frames from there. Just cut your paper down. And again, I'm adhering that with mini dimensionals. And you know what? I think I'm going to add one more to the center here, since this is a longer phrase. That way there's support. And I'll attach that right there. And I did use Very Vanilla cardstock on my image here. And I'm also going to be sticking a piece of Very Vanilla down on the inside of my card as well. And then the final thing that I'm going to do is add a few of the opal rounds using my Take Your Pick tool, just to add a little splash of sparkle to my card here. You can put these on, whoops, well, that one just doesn't want to go the right way, wherever you want on your card. Tuck that one in between. I'll put that one up there, and there we go. You have your completed card. So again, the biggest thing that you need to remember on this card when you're making it is to be sure to give the ink ample time to dry on the pearlescent paper, and you're good to go. I hope you've enjoyed my presentation and the gorgeous products that you can create from this particular stamp set. There's a great deal of flexibility and design in terms of how you use this set, and just go and have some fun. You can pretend it's your mini trip for the day and create away